It was late. Not the dramatic kind of late, just late enough for New York to soften around the edges. Traffic still moved and the lights still burned, but the noise had lost its urgency. Donald Trump had left a private dinner early. Nothing had gone wrong. No argument, no bad news, no uncomfortable question at the table. And somehow that made the night heavier. When nothing goes wrong, there's nothing to hide behind. Instead of taking the waiting car, he walked. Walking wasn't something he did much without a destination. Most of his days were measured in schedules and rooms where everyone waited for him to speak. Tonight he wanted the opposite. No microphones, no small talk, no sense that he had to perform. Just blocks, just air that felt cold in the lungs. Just the city doing what it did when it wasn't trying to impress anyone. Fifth Avenue looked different after midnight. In daylight, it was all glass and purpose. People moving fast, carrying bags, taking calls, staring straight ahead. At night, it felt exposed. Storefronts were dark. The sidewalk was wide and emptier than you'd expect. Streetlights made long reflections on the pavement, like the city was trying to remember itself. That's when he noticed the man. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't holding a cardboard sign. He wasn't doing anything that demanded attention. He sat on the ground near a closed storefront, his back against the glass, knees slightly pulled in. A backpack rested beside him. A paper cup sat in front, placed carefully, almost centered, as if the placement mattered. What made him noticeable wasn't desperation. It was restraint. Trump slowed without meaning to, took a few steps, stopped. "Are you okay?" he asked. The man looked up slowly, mid-50s maybe, tired eyes but alert, a clean jacket, worn thin at the elbows, shoes that had seen too many winters. "I'm okay," the man said. He waited a beat, then added, "As okay as it gets." No sarcasm, no anger, just a statement that sounded practiced. Trump nodded. "How long you been out here?" 2 years, the man said. He glanced down the street, thinking, 3, if you count the car. That answer didn't ask for sympathy. It didn't dramatize anything. It simply existed. Trump frowned slightly, not in judgment, but in the way someone reacts when a story refuses to be simple. "You used to work?" Trump asked. "Yeah," the man said. "Construction, residential, framing, drywall, whatever paid. Then I messed up my back. One bad lift, one wrong day." He shifted his weight as he spoke, instinctively adjusting his posture like the pain still lived in his muscles. "Doctors said rest," he went on. "Gave me painkillers so I could keep working. They helped for a while." He exhaled. Then they didn't. He didn't add more. He didn't need to. Trump hesitated, then asked, "What's your name?" "Gary." Trump didn't offer his. They stood there longer than either expected. Cars passed. A taxi slowed, then moved on. 2 people walked by and didn't look up. The city had a way of teaching you what it considered important. Trump reached into his pocket. Gary saw it and gently shook his head. "Not tonight," he said. "I already ate." That stopped Trump. It wasn't pride or defiance. It was practical, like turning down something you didn't need right now. "Then why are you still sitting here?" Trump asked. Gary leaned his head back against the glass. "If you go back to the shelter too early, they think you're weak," he said. "Weak means you get tested. Tested means trouble. Trouble means attention you don't want." He paused, then added, "Once people see you fall, they don't just watch you fall. They watch how you stay down." Trump wasn't used to standing still in public without an agenda. Even without cameras, he could feel the habit of being on, the reflex to keep his face neutral, to avoid looking like he was thinking too hard. But the street didn't care who he was. It didn't reward posture or confidence. It was just cold stone and passing headlights. He noticed details he normally didn't. A piece of tape on the storefront glass peeled back like someone had tried to fix something and given up. The smell of pretzels from a cart that had shut down hours ago. The thin wind that found every gap between buildings. Gary's cup wasn't empty. There were a few coins in it, enough to say people had noticed him, not enough to change anything. "Where do you go when it gets really cold?" Trump asked. Gary shrugged. "Shelter if there's space, subway sometimes, a friend's couch if I'm lucky. Mostly you learn how to keep moving so your body doesn't decide you're done." He said it casually, like he was talking about weather. And that casualness made it worse because it meant he'd had to say it before. And before that. A siren wailed somewhere, then faded. Gary didn't react. Trump did slightly, because Gary's calm said he'd heard it 1,000 times and learned it usually meant nothing for him. The words hung in the air longer than the silence that followed them. Trump didn't answer right away. He looked down the avenue instead, lights stretching into the distance, the city still moving like nothing had happened. It bothered him how normal everything was. A man could say something true, and the world wouldn't even flinch. Quietly, almost without planning to speak, he said, "People watch me too." Gary turned his head and looked at him more carefully. Not suspicious, curious. He took in the coat, the posture, the way Trump stood like someone used to being listened to. "Yeah," Gary said, "but they don't watch you disappear." There was no accusation in his voice, no envy, just a simple distinction. Trump felt that difference in a way he didn't expect. He had spent most of his life being seen, measured, judged, praised, criticized, but never ignored. The idea of disappearing had always belonged to other people, people on the edges, people you didn't have to picture. He remembered something Gary said. Once people see you fall, they watch how you stay down. He knew that kind of watching, the public kind. But this was different. This was the kind where your name stops being said at all. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a card. No logo, no title, no speech attached to it. Just a name and an address written cleanly, like someone had taken the time to make the letters readable. "Come by tomorrow morning," he said. "I can't promise anything." Gary took the card, but he didn't react the way most people did. He didn't smile. He didn't rush to thank him. He looked at it carefully, as if weighing what it meant to believe someone again. "You sure?" Gary asked, not challenging, testing the reality of it. Trump nodded once. "I'm saying show up, that's all." Gary folded the card neatly and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "That's fair," he said. Trump stepped back. He didn't offer money. Gary didn't ask for it. They held eye contact for a moment, and in that moment it felt uncomfortably equal. Not the kind of equality you talk about. The kind that shows up when neither person can pretend they're not human. Trump walked away. He didn't look back. Gary didn't either. On the next block, Trump heard laughter spilling out of a bar. On the block after that, a delivery truck rattled past. The city kept making noise like it always did, but the sentence stayed with him. They don't watch you disappear. Gary sat for a while after Trump left. The cup in front of him didn't move. The streetlight above him buzzed faintly. A passerby dropped a coin into the cup without stopping. Gary didn't look up. He wasn't ungrateful. He was just tired of performing gratitude for strangers. He thought about the card in his pocket. The part of him that still believed in tomorrow morning felt dangerous. Hope could hurt. Hope had hurt before. Still, when the night grew colder and the sidewalk got quieter, Gary stood up, adjusted the backpack strap, and started walking toward the shelter. Not early, not late, right on time, like someone who had learned the rules by being punished for forgetting them. Inside, the air smelled like bleach and damp winter clothing. Voices echoed. A volunteer called out names. Gary kept his eyes forward, found an open spot, and sat down. He placed the card against the inside seam of his jacket, like it could be stolen just by being exposed. He didn't sleep much. He rarely did. But in the thin hours before morning, he found himself repeating a simple instruction. Show up. That's all. Before Trump turned to leave, Gary said, almost like an afterthought, "If you're serious, don't make it a big thing." Trump answered, "I won't." Wind cut between buildings. Gary pulled his collar up. Trump watched and understood comfort is privilege. In the morning, the cold felt different. Less dramatic, more honest. Gary washed his face in a restroom sink, tried to flatten his hair with wet hands, and checked his jacket pockets 3 times to make sure the card was still there. He didn't want it to be gone. He also didn't want it to be real. He walked to the address because walking was what he had. On the way, he passed people holding coffees, people complaining about traffic, people scrolling their phones like the world was an endless list of things to react to. He wondered how many of them had ever sat on a sidewalk long enough to watch their own life shrink. The lobby he arrived at was quiet and bright. The floor shined. The kind of place where you feel your shoes are telling on you. A security guard glanced up, then down. Gary held the card out like a fragile document. "I'm supposed to..." Gary started, then stopped. The sentence felt ridiculous. "I'm supposed to be here. Who says that?" The guard read the name on the card, made a call, and told Gary to wait. Waiting was familiar. It was what most doors offered him. Wait until they decide whether you exist. Minutes passed, then more. Gary rehearsed a small speech in his head, something calm, something grateful, something that wouldn't sound desperate. He hated that he had to do that. He hated that the world asked people like him to be polite about their own survival. Finally, a woman in a simple blazer came out and spoke to him like he was normal. "Gary?" she asked. He stood up too fast. "Yeah." "Come with me," she said. No fanfare, no cameras, no public gesture, just a hallway, an office, a chair. She asked questions that sounded boring, which was the most comforting thing Gary had felt in a long time. Work history, injuries, what he could lift, what he couldn't, whether he could show up at the same time each day. Gary answered honestly. He didn't pretend his back was perfect. He didn't pretend his life was stable. He said, "I can show up." She nodded like that mattered. They didn't hand him a miracle. They didn't erase 3 years with a signature. But they did what most people hadn't. They spoke to him without making him feel like a warning sign. Inside the office, the woman didn't ask him to explain every worst moment. That alone felt rare. She asked what he could do and what he needed to keep doing it. She mentioned a basic medical checkup, a referral for physical therapy if he qualified, a list of places that helped with paperwork. The conversation wasn't warm exactly. It was competent, and competence to Gary felt like respect. When it was over, she handed him a printed sheet with times, addresses, and a name to ask for. Not a guarantee, a path. Gary folded it carefully, the same way he had folded the card, like neatness could keep disappointment away. He stepped outside and paused, letting the cold air hit his face. He didn't feel saved. He felt less alone. And that mattered, because loneliness is what turns problems into cliffs. Loneliness is what makes you stop returning calls, stop showing up, stop believing you're worth the effort. He walked past a newsstand with a headline about someone else's scandal, someone else's victory. The paper didn't mention him. It never had. But for the first time, he didn't feel erased by that. He felt separate from it, which was healthier. Later that day, he sat on a bench and called his daughter's number. It went to voicemail. He didn't hang up right away. He left a message that was short and ordinary. "Hey, it's me. I'm okay. I'll call again." Then he stared at his phone like it was a door that might open if he waited long enough. When Gary left the building, the daylight looked sharper. The city was still the city, fast, impatient, distracted. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was inside it again, not outside the glass. Across town, Trump went back to his schedule. Meetings happened. Phones rang. People wanted decisions. He didn't mention the night to anyone. Not because he was ashamed, because he didn't know what it meant yet. Some moments don't make sense until they return to you. But they did return. He noticed small things. A man asleep on a subway bench. A woman asking for change at a corner that used to be just a corner. A worker's hands, red from cold, holding a coffee like it was the only warm thing all day. The city had always had these people. He had simply been trained to look past them. At night, from a high window, the streets didn't look like a map anymore. They looked like lives. Thousands of them crossing and missing each other, brushing past without contact. He thought about Gary's sentence again. Once people see you fall, they watch how you stay down. And he realized something that was hard to say out loud. Watching wasn't the same as seeing. You could be watched by millions and still not be seen as a person. You could be seen by one stranger on a sidewalk and feel human again. Weeks passed. Gary didn't become a new man overnight. He still woke up sore. He still flinched when a door clicked shut too hard. He still carried the instinct to explain himself, to apologize for taking up space. Trauma doesn't disappear just because your address changes. But he had a routine again, a place to be in the morning, people who expected him to arrive, work that wasn't glamorous but was real, moving supplies, helping with maintenance, tasks that didn't require him to lift more than his back could handle. The pay wasn't large, but it was steady. Steady was everything. One afternoon, a co-worker offered him half a sandwich without making it a performance. Another day, someone asked about his daughter because they heard him mention her name once. It startled him how normal kindness could feel when it wasn't wrapped in pity. Gary didn't tell people he had once slept in his car. He didn't need the story to be his identity. He just kept showing up. Trump never checked on him, not directly. And that strangely made the help feel more real. It wasn't charity with a spotlight. It wasn't a lesson being taught. It was simply a door that had opened, quietly, without asking for applause. For Trump, the night didn't turn into a public revelation. His life stayed busy, loud, crowded with opinions. But the city had changed shape in his mind. He could still feel the cold air in his lungs from that walk. He could still hear Gary's voice, flat, honest, unromantic, saying the kind of truth people avoid because it makes them uncomfortable. Gary's first paycheck wasn't a celebration. It was a piece of paper that made the future slightly less terrifying. He cashed it, bought a cheap set of gloves, replaced the socks that had holes in them, and took a long shower without watching the clock. Small upgrades that felt like dignity returning in inches. Some nights he still walked past the old spot on Fifth Avenue without meaning to. The sidewalk looked the same. The storefront glass still reflected the streetlights. Another man sat there once, younger than Gary, staring at the ground. Gary slowed, thought about stopping, then did. He didn't have the right words. He didn't have money to spare. So he did the one thing he wished someone had done for him more often. He asked, "You okay?" The younger man looked up, surprised, like no one had spoken to him in days. He said, "I don't know." Gary nodded. "Yeah," he said. "I get it." He didn't fix the man's life. He didn't promise anything he couldn't deliver. He just stayed for a minute, long enough for the man to feel less like a piece of sidewalk. Trump, in his own world, didn't become a different person overnight either. People don't. But sometimes a single moment rewires what you notice. He still saw the city as power and business, but now he also saw it as risk. How easily a body breaks, how quickly support disappears, how fast shame does the rest. Most people don't become invisible overnight. They fade. They fade when an injury becomes a missed shift. When a missed shift becomes a late bill. When a late bill becomes a phone call you stop answering. When shame becomes silence. When silence becomes distance. When distance becomes a life no one thinks to look for. And the distance between successful and homeless isn't always talent. It isn't always effort. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's health. Sometimes it's one person who answers the phone, and one person who doesn't. That's the part nobody likes to admit. Because if the distance is short, then it could happen to anyone. And if it could happen to anyone, then the people on the sidewalk aren't a different species. They're a warning. Or more accurately, they're a mirror. That night on Fifth Avenue wasn't about a famous man doing something heroic. It was about a man on the ground refusing to perform desperation, and a man standing up realizing that watching a city isn't the same as seeing it. Everyone wants to be watched. Very few people want to be seen. But being seen, really seen, can be the difference between fading and returning. And sometimes, the smallest thing you can do isn't to give money. Sometimes it's to stop, to look, to speak like the person in front of you is real. Because the world doesn't erase people with violence most of the time. It erases them with indifference. And the only real counter to indifference is attention that treats someone as real. On some nights, Gary still woke up expecting the shelter's fluorescent lights. Then he remembered where he was, and the relief came quietly. Not like a miracle, more like a breath he'd been holding. He kept moving on.